Hi guys, sorry I am not there today. What you will be doing is listening and viewing this video for hunger motivation, and then after this you will spend time watching the video for sexual motivation. Alright, so hunger motivation. What makes us eat the things we do want to eat? Is it biological? Is it psychological? All these things go in to answer the question, what motivates us in our department of hunger? So hunger is a biological drive. It's one of those things that we've talked about when we did drive reduction theory. And this just goes into a little more detail about that specific drive. So with physical hunger, Washburn and Cannon, who we had mentioned before, Cannon was the one that we had talked about previously with homeostasis, I believe. And he also is going to investigate hunger. And so what he did was he had his partner Washburn swallow a balloon that was attached to a device. And the balloon would be, once it was in his stomach, would be slightly inflated. It wouldn't cause pain. But whenever the stomach contracted, it would squeeze the balloon, which would register on the recording device. And so it would let him know when the stomach was sending the signal that it was like empty, when it was like rumbling. And he wanted to see if that matched up with when Washburn would hit a button to say he felt hungry or he had hunger pains. They were trying to link that hunger pains are directly tied to the stomach contracting and moving around or making noise or whatever, and registering it as hunger pains are driven by a biological function of the stomach. And so what he found out was that yes, this is actually true. You had hunger pains, and then you had stomach contractions matching when those hunger pains occurred. So it showed that yes, there are elements of physiological pieces of hunger. There are things in our body that trigger us to be hungry and want to go eat. But we also know that there's a lot of other times we eat even when we're full or when we're not super hungry, but I mean, we could eat a little. There's all these different elements to it, so it can't just be stomach contractions. This is a good point. It says that a piece of it is one motivating factor for hunger can be stomach pains. They've tried other experiments throughout the years where they removed the digestive tract to the intestines so they didn't have a stomach. And so if they didn't have a stomach, then if Cannon and Washburn were correct, this rat should never be hungry. If hunger is solely because of stomach contractions and that motivates us to eat, if you don't have a stomach, shouldn't be hungry ever. And so even these rats without a stomach, where it just went straight through to their digestive tract as far as the intestines go, they still ate. They were still eating because they were obviously still hungry, which means the stomach might be a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the only piece, because even without it, rats were still showing they were hungry. And so with this, you have a bunch of other theories born of what are triggers for hunger. You have the glucostatic theory that says glucose levels are monitored by the brain and tell you when you're hungry. So this is kind of like one of those low blood sugar things. Your glucose will regulate when you need to eat. So if you've ever seen of somebody like they're not feeling well, they're feeling kind of faint, or they are a little shaky, it could be that their blood sugar is low and they need to eat. This doesn't just mean people with diabetes. It can be anybody. They just need something in their system. And this is suggesting that our brain monitors this kind of without us being aware. And when glucose drops and our brain registers it, our digestive tract sends out these messages. And so when the digestive tract says, hey, glucose is low, it lets the brain know. And then the brain has its own hunger button. It's not just the stomach. The brain is involved as well. Now, other things that determine if we're hungry or not, we have internal and external cues, right? Those internal are more biological things like glucose levels, stomach pains or stomach contractions. Or we've talked about the hypothalamus, right, with the 5 F's: fight, flight, feeding, fornication, and Fahrenheit. We know the brain is involved, right? But there's also external signals. These are things that encourage you to eat or elicit eating. It could be like the smell of something really delicious, or seeing a food that looks real good, or everyone else is eating, so you decide to eat with everyone. All of these things go into what makes us hungry. It's not very simple. So looking back at our hypothalamus with the 5 F's, the feeding button takes about 10 minutes to get started. And so it's a slow process. Like our brain is kind of, in this instance, slow to trigger us to be hungry. We've already probably physically been hungry for 10 minutes, but then our brain tells us we are. There's all these different centers where people are trying to figure out where is the hunger and feeding centers at. So this piece of the nucleus, this thing that I probably am going to say wrong, arcuate nucleus, has a center that secretes this appetite stimulating hormone saying that we are hungry, and then another part secretes suppressing hormones that tell you to stop eating. Now, science is kind of off and on about what the lateral and ventromedial hypothalamus do, but on the AP exam, they still utilize this information as far as I know. So the lateral hypothalamus, the lateral causes you to eat, okay? This is what tells you to keep eating. It's making you want to eat as much as possible. If we remove it in rats, they stop eating completely and they will starve to death. It appears that they no longer get that signal to eat. Their stomach may be sending signals, but their brain isn't really intercepting. Their hypothalamus is not doing what it's supposed to. And then on the flip side, we have the ventromedial hypothalamus, and this acts as the off switch. If you've eaten a lot and then you are full, the ventromedial flips on to tell your body to stop being hungry and to stop eating. If we take it out of an animal like a rat, it will look like the rat in the bottom of this picture on the right. The rat ate and ate and ate and just kept eating and didn't seem to stop. It never got the message that they were full. So it can have pretty dire consequences as well. There are also hormones related to how much we eat. You do have to know all these ones, unfortunately. So hopefully you can come up with some good mnemonics to help you memorize them, whatever works. So we have ghrelin. This makes you more hungry. That's basically what you have to do. Do these make you more hungry, less hungry? What do they do? So ghrelin makes you more hungry. It arouses your stomach to say, hey, I'm empty, let's get something in there. So increases hunger. Leptin, protein hormone secreted by fat cells. When there's a lot, it causes a decrease in hunger. Okay, so leptin shuts down or decreases the amount of hunger because leptin is all kind of these fatty elements. Insulin, this just controls blood glucose. So this doesn't directly tell you if you're hungry or not, but it is helping to regulate the the glucose levels. So this is probably, you've heard this word due to people who are diabetic having to take insulin. Orexin, this is a hormone that makes you hungry. It's secreted by the hypothalamus, so it's not in the digestive tract like the others. It's actually in the brain, and it will tell you that you need to go eat something. And then PYY, which our brain does not, our book does not talk about, this tells you that you're not hungry. It sets signals down. It tells them to shut off. It tells you to stop eating. All right, now, theories on why we eat as much as we do and when we stop, and each person having different levels. Set point theory suggests that our hypothalamus acts like a thermostat, right? So if your house is set to 70 degrees, the thermostat does what it needs to regulate 70 degrees. In the winter, if it gets to 69, it will pump it back up till it gets to 70 degrees, right? And so this says our hypothalamus is like that with weight. It wants us, whatever weight you're at, whether you like it or not, your body is trying to regulate you staying that weight according to this theory. So when you're losing weight, so let's say you want to go on a diet and you want to lose weight, when you're losing that weight, your body, your hypothalamus is actually making you hungrier to replenish that weight. That's why it might be hard for people to lose weight. It's also why people might have trouble gaining weight if they need to, because their body is telling them, you're not hungry, don't eat anything, don't do this, because it's trying to keep you wherever you're at, regardless of if you like it or not. Now, one of the things that's related to this is this basal metabolic rate. So we are burning energy all the time, even if you're doing nothing. You're sitting here, you're doing nothing at all, but even when your body's at rest, you're still burning calories. So when you sleep at night, you're still burning calories. What we do know is if you are starving, if you're not eating enough of what you need, this actually drops and you stop burning as many calories. Basically, it's going to slow down kind of your metabolism because it wants to hold on to whatever food that you are taking. So once again, this kind of supports the idea that your body reacts in a way to keep you the weight you are. It'll slow down your metabolism if needed in order to keep you at as much of this weight as they can. Now, there are criticisms of this theory, of course. So what we know is slow, sustained changes in weight can change your set point, right? If you do it the healthy way and you're losing weight in a healthy manner, you change your diet, you're working out not excessively, but in a healthy way, you will start losing weight. And then your body will like recalibrate and say like, oh, you're 20 pounds less than what you were 6 months ago. And so now this is your new set point. But the point of set point is you can't change it. You're stuck at the weight you are once you've hit like maturity as an adult, and that's that. So if we're saying set point can change if you lose weight slow enough, well, that goes against what set point actually says. It's set. If we're changing it and altering our set point, it's not something that's set. Also, when given an unlimited access to food, we still overeat and gain weight. If whatever my weight is right now, if my body is set to just stay this, at Thanksgiving, I should have stopped eating at a certain point, but when there's all this stuff there and all this food, people overeat. They keep going and they will gain weight because of it. So the holidays are a perfect time to talk about this. When presented with so many different options and so much food, our body does not have that off switch to say, I am 150 pounds and I'm going to stay here. No. If you have access to food, you will keep eating, so set point doesn't apply. Set point also doesn't explain psychological factors of hunger. It says it's all bodily functions, it's all biological, which isn't true. Depending on what environmental factors we have, we may eat more or less. So when we talk about those environmental factors, here's 4. These are 4 things that influence how much you consume. Palatability, basically taste. If it tastes good, you eat more. If it tastes bad, you eat less. Very common knowledge, but it is something that influences if you overeat or undereat. Quantity available. So Thanksgiving, the holidays, all of these, there are usually mass quantities of food available, more than normal. You have more than one helping of each. And so because there's so much of it, we tend to overeat. Variety. The greater the variety, the more people eat. So buffets. In America, we're obsessed with buffets. A lot of other countries don't have these things. But when we have this happen, people are more likely to eat more because there are more variety. All right, so besides a greater variety of food, you also have the presence of others. People eat 44% more when others are eating around them compared to if they're alone. So some people say that can't be true, but it is. Like during the holidays when everyone else is digging in, you kind of dig in too. It's that whole like social psychology piece of it. We conform to others' behaviors. We kind of just get lost in the moment and do what other people are doing. So Thanksgiving, everyone's like, I'm having a second piece of pie. Do you want one? You're like, oh, sure, everyone else is having one. I might as well too. We eat more when we're around others versus if you're eating alone, you usually eat till you're hungry and then you're done. You don't go over the point of it. But when we're with others, we do. Now, as far as food preferences go, so if anyone in here listening to this loves carbs and starches, we know they're not great for us. We know we need them, but we know that we shouldn't overeat them. In some diets, like even completely get rid of them. But why is it when you are upset or feeling emotional and down in the dumps, you want to eat carbs? You want donuts, you want potatoes, you want pasta, you want all these carbs and starches. Well, there's actually a scientific reason why when you're sad, you want this kind of food. It actually boosts serotonin levels, which has a calming effect. And then as far as eating junk food, so if you're sad and you go and eat something that's full of sugar like ice cream or chocolate cake, all these things release dopamine in your brain, similar to a drug. And so it makes you feel happier. Serotonin calms you with the carbs, and then sugar raises dopamine, which makes you feel happy. And so there's this horrible reinforced behavior of when I'm sad, if I eat these things, I feel better, so I should do it more in the future. As far as universal tastes go, we actually, humans, have a preference for sweet and salty things. Sour and bitter, we typically don't like. They're related to things that can poison us, evolutionarily speaking. So we tend to stray away from those until maybe we acquire the taste later on. The weird thing is with culture helps us determine what kind of food we like based on what we're exposed to. So with my kid when he was a baby and growing up now, if I exposed him to lots of different culturally diverse types of food, he would probably like a larger variety of foods if he just grew up eating all these different types. So if your family has always been one to try lots of different recipes or they incorporate a lot of different things. So like I'll tell you right now, I'm a picky eater. I don't like most vegetables. If I had been raised in a household where more vegetables were prepared more often, I may like them more now, but I just wasn't exposed to it, so I'm not a fan. Culture is the same way. So if we look at this, some people will see this in American culture and think, wow, those all look really yummy. Pizza, aranza, French fries, that all sounds great. In America, we also have this kind of obsession with fast food culture, right? So these are some old statistics, but even old as they may be, they're probably much higher or worse off now. They're still shocking. So due to our fast food culture, at least each day, 1 in 4 people visit a fast food restaurant for at least one of their meals. French fries, most eaten vegetable in America. Actually in schools now when we're looking at balanced meals, I know not long ago there was an article about how a slice of pizza is now considered a balanced meal because it has your dairy, it has your meat, it has your bread, it has your vegetables with tomato sauce. It's got all of the courses right on there and it's, quote, a balanced meal. So even our view of what is a balanced healthy meal has changed due to our culture. If you did a supersize, which now we just call it a large, they got rid of supersize because of that whole movie Super Size Me, and now it's just a large. If you got a large Coke, a large fry, and a Big Mac, you would have to walk 7 hours to burn off all the calories that you ate. Other countries in the world do not have the same size portions we do. So I love watching super trashy TV like 90 Day Fiance. And it's so funny when people come over from other cultures, they talk about how much food we are given in a serving. If you go to a restaurant and you order, a hamburger and fries from this diner, the hamburger's huge. There's a huge serving of fries. The pop you get is massive with it. In other cultures around the world, everything is much smaller. Kids see tons of advertisements a year, and with that, most of them will be fast food commercials if they're watching TV. That's probably a little different now since everything is like streaming or kids watch Netflix without commercials. But if they're watching regular programming that they can't skip forward through stuff, they're still seeing all these advertisements because there's tons of them. McDonald's distributes more toys than Toys R Us when that existed. And obesity is passing smoking as a leading cause of preventable death. It's an epidemic that we have. Americans are very stereotypical, always overweight, larger people than other people globally. So it's not a good path Americans are on. But when we look at these aspects of what makes us hungry, a lot of them are psychological, right? There's the internal ones we talked about, biologically, what makes you hungry, what things look good. But then we have external ones. It smells good. Everyone else is eating. There's a bunch of it. It's our favorite food, whatever. We also know that we can use psychology, though, to deter people from eating a food, maybe by accident, maybe on purpose. That Garcia effect that we talked about in our learning unit back in psychology, right? You eat something, and then you puke later, and then you're like, I never want to eat that again. That's so gross. It made me sick. I don't want to eat it anymore, right? Something that simple. So, like, okay, my kid got the stomach flu on Thanksgiving. He didn't really eat much all day because he didn't feel good, but then he could not help himself and he ate a piece of Oreo pie, right? And then an hour after he ate that Oreo pie, he got sick. He threw up everywhere. A few days later, when there was still some Oreo pie left, I asked him, do you want some Oreo pie? And he said, no, it made me sick. And I said, no, you were sick. That's what made you sick. You just caught a germ. Nope, he won't eat the Oreo pie now. That's the Garcia effect. So we can do it to people if we really want to, like if they were obsessed with eating McDonald's fast food, somehow they get sick off of it. Maybe they never want to touch it again, and that would be good. We do it with things like abuse with alcohol, right? People who are addicted to drinking alcohol. You give them a pill that makes them barf anytime they touch it, and they're deterrent from it in the future because they think about that time it made them get violently ill. So psychological factors definitely can affect what we're hungry for and when we're hungry. So if you look at this, on a scale of 1 to 5, how hungry does this make you? It probably does not make you that hungry. We are not a culture where bugs are seen as appetizing. So it really depends on where you're from. So if we look at something like this, maybe some of the stuff on this makes you think, oh, yum, that looks delicious. I would love to eat that, right? Because culturally, this stuff, whatever culture you're from or whatever you're used to eating, maybe this is reflective of it or it's not super different, so you'd give it a whirl, okay? But depending on what culture we're from, other things can be really gross. Okay, so I apologize for this next set of pictures. Culture, remember. So all of these are things that people eat in other places in the world, and they are usually less than appetizing to us based on our culture. So we'll go back to that one so you don't have to look at it. But cultures where they eat this kind of gross in our standard stuff, it may not be gross to them. For example, Asia has bug markets. They have a fish market they're notorious for, but they also have a bug market where they have all these dried beetles and grasshoppers and mealworms. And people go and shop for this stuff. They go and they take it and they go and cook with it at home. And it's a completely normal part of their culture. But if we went over there, most of us would probably not be too keen on chowing down on some grasshoppers. But over there, it's not weird at all. Weird fact is that with the way our world is going with pollution and overpopulation, scientists are claiming that bugs will be the future protein. They're easy to get mass quantities of. They're easy to breed in essence. They don't pollute the earth as much as cattle with methane and stuff like that. And so they'd be a good source of getting protein for a very low impact rate on our world. So kind of weird, right? All right. So in this, when we talk about eating and culture and what makes us hungry or not hungry, we also are going to tie in and loop back to body dysmorphic disorders with eating disorders, right? So we've talked about these before, but they do pop back up in this unit. Bulimia nervosa, where people are characterized as binging large quantities of food. We're talking, thousands or even 10,000 calories in a sitting. They sit and they will eat, whatever they want. Maybe it's an entire dozen of donuts by themselves in a very rapid rate, and then they'll go and purge and throw it all up. And then we have anorexia nervosa, where people just starve themselves. They don't eat, they excessively work out, they don't take in any or mass quantities of food. If they take in maybe a little. Both bulimia and anorexia, it's a body dysmorphic disorder, as we've mentioned before, where these people view themselves as being chubby, and that's why I really think that picture on the lower right is profound, because as somebody with a body dysmorphic disorder, that's what they would see, right? They're looking in the mirror and they see someone who's not rail thin, and they don't like that. But the reality of it is, we see the girl on the left where she's super skinny, her bones are sticking out. She does not view herself that way. Women, more often than men, have these issues, but we do see an increase in males experiencing body dysmorphic disorders. And then obesity is definitely a piece of this as well. Overeating disorders, or they can call them binge eating disorders, where they just binge. There's no purge. They just eat large quantities of food. Obesity in itself, though, is not a mental illness. It is just something that we see happening in our culture, where people are getting physical health issues because of their overeating behaviors. Mostly it's due to eating habits, but some people do show a genetic predisposition to being overweight. It can run in a family. So these are facts. You don't need to know them. Just about body image and studies done, and how unhappy people really are with their bodies, unfortunately. This body image issue that persists and is growing. You have a majority of women that want to lose weight and a portion of men that do. Men and women saying they'd give 5 years off of their lifespan to be the weight they wanted, which is insane. We tend to see adolescence be the time where girls become unhappy with their weight and their body due to puberty and all that fun stuff. Even their perception of themselves changes as they get older, which is kind of sad. And I'll show you a video of it here in a sec. A really cool commercial that was done about how girls change their views of themselves and their gender roles and just their abilities during that age of adolescence and puberty. Things go kind of wonky there. People are starting to see pregnancy as a hindrance to body image. People will not want to get pregnant due to the weight gain that can be associated with it. So, example from my own life, for my sister. My sister loves to work out and is very tied to her body image. It's very important to her. And when she got pregnant, that was the largest issue she had, was that she was going to gain weight. And even now, her baby is 6 months old. She has spent every day since having that baby, within like 3 weeks, she was trying to work out and trying to lose weight. And she's constantly been like calculating if she's back to her normal weight or not. And if she's not, it like drags on her. And she hated being pregnant because she said it was mentally the hardest thing she has ever done because she couldn't stand what her body looked like. So she is a prime example of pregnancy as a hindrance to body image. With this stuff, we see people who are teased for their weight when they're young. It kind of lasts a lifetime. It's just all of these horrible things. We can say that, especially social media, magazines, TV, social media, really increased body dissatisfaction. It's more maybe another reason why kids should stay off of social media and avoid having their own cell phones and stuff until they're older, until they can, maybe have a more positive image of themselves, because it's so damaging. And so I always think this chart's super interesting. The idea where women think they are versus what they think men like versus what men actually prefer. So women often feel like they are much heavier than they actually are. They also believe that men always want them thinner than they think they actually are. And most men are actually more accepting of larger women than women think. So just all these different perspectives on what is, quote, better than another. When in reality, all body images are super great and acceptable and should be appreciated. But in our culture as Americans, and it's a global thing too, there are big issues with it. So I think it was in France, you can't be a model unless you have a safe like BMI, versus in America, most of these like Victoria's Secret models and stuff, they're excessively thin and below BMI because they do have eating disorders, a lot of them. And so some places around the world are trying to create healthier body images and body image perspectives for people in their culture, which is kind of nice to see. All right, this wraps up eating or hunger motivation. And so after you're done taking notes with this and going over it, next we will look at sexual motivation. Oh, and before we do, I wanted to show you the cool video or the cool commercial of girls and their changing aspects of gender roles as they age. All right, let's see if I can get a majority of this in the video since it's kind of cut off on my screen. But this is a commercial called Like a Girl, and they talk about how girls' visions of themselves and how they're supposed to act change during that adolescent period, which, kind of tackles in with body image issues occurring at this time as well.
Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm going to just give you some actions to do. I just do the first thing that comes to mind. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
My hair.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aww. My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run as fast as you can.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
Is like a girl a good thing?
Actually, I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. It sounds like a bad thing. It sounds like you're trying to humiliate someone.
So when they're in that vulnerable time between 10 and 12, how do you think it affects them when somebody uses like a girl as an insult?
I think it definitely drops their self-confidence and really puts them down, because during that time they're already trying to figure themselves out, and when somebody says you hit like a girl, it's like, well, what does that mean? Because they think they're a strong person. It's kind of like telling them that they're weak and they're not as good as them.
And what advice do you have to young girls who are told they run like a girl, kick like a girl, hit like a girl, swing like a girl?
Keep doing it because it's working. If somebody else says that running like a girl or kicking like a girl or shooting like a girl is something that you shouldn't be doing, that's their problem. Because if you're still scoring and you're still getting to the ball in time and you're still being first, you're doing it right. It doesn't matter what they say. I mean, yes, I kick like a girl and I swim like a girl and I walk like a girl and I wake up in the morning like a girl because I am a girl. And that's not something that I should be ashamed of. So I'm going to do it anyway. That's what they should do.
If I asked you to run like a girl now, would you do it differently?
I would run like myself.
Would you like a chance to redo it?
Why can't run like a girl also mean win the race?
All right, so I always think that's a really good kind of commercial that showed how puberty is a super sensitive time where people change their views about themselves, about gender roles, and also totally related to the development of body image and those body image issues we see. All right, that's all I got for you now. Move on to the most awkward lecture of the year.